Welcome to Zombie Life with me, Dead Ned. On today's episode, I'll be looking at a forgotten retro classic from the 80s, Dead and Buried. Remember, if you enjoy this episode, please like and subscribe. It would warm my very cold zombie heart. Now, although Dead and Buried wouldn't really feature on most horror buffs' lists of all-time greats, it's still a creepy and atmospheric tale that deserves a watch, or perhaps even a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a while. Dead and Buried was released in 1981, directed by Gary Sherman and written by Dan O'Bannon and Ron Suchet, who both wrote the original screenplay for Alien. And Dan O'Bannon would go on to write and direct zombie classic The Return of the Living Dead. I've already made a film about The Return of the Living Dead, so go and give it a watch. I've always liked the design of the poster, and of course capitalises on the fact that it's from the creators of Alien. The plot of the film centres around the remote coastal town of Potter's Bluff, where visitors are being murdered by the locals for no apparent reason at all. Although they do like to take photographs and film as they kill people. Bit of a f***ed up hobby, but each to their own. As the bodies stack up in a morgue, Sheriff Dan Gillis, played by James Farentino, sets about solving the mysterious murders, aided by the town's mortician, Dobbs. Dobbs likes to lighten the mood by turning up to the scenes of recent deaths, playing casual jazz loudly in his car. And dancing to music just before performing an autopsy. The sheriff is married to Janet, played by Flash Gordon's Melody Anderson, who at first seems to be the perfect wife, but it seems everyone in Potter's Bluff has a secret to hide, or ends a scene with a shifty look. Things get even more sinister when a visiting family enter a diner to ask for directions and are introduced to Freddy, a character who was brutally killed in the film's opening. He looks fine and dandy here and happy to provide them with petrol for their car. Moments later, they crash their car due to some thick fog. Then they enter a deserted and dark house looking for help. After some super cheesy yet standard exploring a deserted house dialogue, they are attacked, photographed and welcomed to Potter's Bluff. You know, they may be brutal murderers, but they're certainly friendly and welcoming at the same time. Shortly after this incident, the sheriff accidentally runs someone over. When he gets out to check on them, he discovers that a severed arm attached to his car grille is still moving. It's here that his suspicions of weird and strange goings-on are ever so slightly raised. Even more so when the road victim takes back his severed arm and f***s off. Meanwhile, Janet is still acting strangely. No, not by polishing the silverware. The sheriff finds a book in her drawer on witchcraft and voodooism. But don't worry, she's got a perfectly good explanation as always.
It's for my class. I'm going to give a lecture in witchcraft.
Ben, the hotel owner, tells Sheriff Gillis he's seen one of the victims who was staying with him alive and well. The sheriff visits his wife at school and finds her scaring the kids shitless with her best zombie impression. Not bad, needs a bit of work. Sheriff Gillis doesn't seem too impressed though. A young hitchhiker meets a grisly end after accepting a ride from a guy who has creepy killer written all over him. And there's an impressive old school special effects sequence where Dobbs rebuilds her face. Incidentally, the special effects on this movie were provided by the legendary Stan Winston, who as always did an amazing job, especially on such a low budget. The sheriff gets some lab results telling him some flesh he found from the moving arm on his car has been dead for about 3 or 4 months. That's impossible, he says.
It's impossible.
The next 10 minutes of the movie involves Sheriff Gillis running around an almost deserted town looking for Dobbs, who appears to be playing hide and seek in the morgue's cooling storage. He also gets a victim exhumed from a grave. There's no corpse, just a human heart wrapped in a jumper. Perfectly normal. Next, he pops into the photography shop to pick up a reel of Super 8 film his wife kept on insisting he had developed. Something is not quite right with this reel of film because of the ominous music cue and the slow zoom into it. Oh, and that skanky looking hand. Sheriff Gillis sets up a projector at home and plays the home movie footage, and it's here that he makes a terrifying discovery about what's really been going on with the f***ed up townfolk. Needless to say, this all leads to a confrontation between the sheriff and the evil mastermind behind it all. I won't give too much away, just in case you decide to check out the movie for yourselves. The ending is pretty cool though, shocking, a little bit sad, with a nice twist thrown in. There are clues throughout the film as to what's actually going on, like the town motto, a new way of life. Anytime a character has photographic equipment, they really shouldn't be trusted. Janet explaining to her school children that some cultures believe that the Walking Dead can sometimes be at the will of a master. Dobbs the mortician boasting how he makes the bodies he prepares for burial even more beautiful than before. The reel of film that Janet keeps on insisting her husband gets developed, and the fact that the whole town looks like it's kind of dying, with its run-down buildings in need of a paint job. Everything looks a tad shabby. It's definitely a bit of a slow burner. There's a lot of meandering and walking around in the dark with flashlights chasing shadows. And with this film, the mystery isn't so much who's doing the killing. We find this out pretty much in the first 10 minutes. It's more why they are killing. There's a few cliched jump scares, as you'd expect. One involving a random chicken. There's also some genuinely shocking moments, especially the way the townsfolk look so calm and nonplussed welcoming one of the victims to Potter's Buff just before they set fire to him. Back in the 1980s, this film was actually banned for a while, making it onto the infamous video nasty list. Probably because of scenes like this, and when the burn victim is recovering in hospital, one of his attackers visits him dressed as a nurse to administer medicine with the world's longest syringe straight into his eyeball. Ow. There are plenty of other deaths to enjoy, so the film doesn't lack in gory moments. In fact, director Gary Sherman avoided showing the colour red in most scenes so that the sight of blood during the murder sequences would be more shocking. It also features an early appearance by Robert Englund, who of course went on to play the man of all our dreams, Freddy Krueger. All in all, I think this movie is definitely worth checking out, or revisiting if you haven't seen it in a while. It's a good slice of early retro horror with a bit of a Twilight Zone vibe. It also reminds me a bit of a Tales from the Crypt episode. Thanks for watching, and remember, until next time, stay warm and stay tasty. Hey zombie lovers, hit the subscribe button now so you'll never miss an episode. I'll be up to all kinds of things, from playing board and video games, reviewing absolutely anything horror related that takes my fancy, or sometimes just talking shit about my zombie life.